Okay, I'm going to try this video again for the 300th time. Forgive me, I'm a little bit fluish, so I'm mumbling and sniffling and coughing all over the place. And a little bit brain dead, but what do we got? We have a reproduction of self-assisted oscillation in a shorted coil, bucking magnetic field oscillation, the video by Chris. And this is just a study on the A vector potential because I'm trying to get it in my head. What exactly is the A vector potential, how it moves, how it interacts with coils, etc., etc. So what do we got here? We've got same setup. The A vector potential coils on top, which are basically just wound clockwise, counterclockwise. The centers are connected, and then the terminals on the outsides will be shorting and unshorting. So we have input on the left, output on the right, and we've got a stack of magnets in the center. The output is a 12 volt 300 milliamp bulb, which we've got connected to the scope. I'm looking at both voltage and current. The input is driven by sine wave from my function generator into this amplifier. Just loud horn amplifier, quite nice one. What else? The coils themselves are all 175 turns of 0.8 millimeter wire, 1.9 ohms, about 4.22 millihenries each. So, I guess, let's see on the scope here, if you can see it, the yellow trace is the input voltage. The blue is the output voltage, and the purple is the output current. I guess the first thing to show would be, if we can see it, I'll zoom in on the bulb. It's difficult to see on the camera. I'll go ahead and short those terminals though on the A vector potential coils. So here we have a short, unshort, short, unshort, short, unshort, and I can see it with my eyes, but I can't see it on the camera, which is ridiculous, but that's okay because I'm going to show you the scope shots. Here's the traces, and you can see them if I can get the camera stable. Okay, so the blue and the purple is short, unshort. You can see them growing in amplitude when I short. Short, unshort, short, unshort. Okay, so now let me zoom back out. So I've tried a bunch of different configurations and moving coils around and whatnot and stuff, and I found that the magnets don't seem to make any difference. I guess for this particular setup, arrangements of coils and what's being not pulsed, but yeah, see, brain dead. Anyways, I'm going to go ahead and remove the magnets and we'll see if it makes a difference. Right now we're sitting at, on the output, 3.3 volts, 104 milliamps. So let me pause and remove magnets. Okay, so magnets are out. Still about 3.3 volts, 104, 105 milliamps RMS. So the magnets didn't seem to make too much of a difference. When we short and unshort, we still see the same amplitude gain. So what did I want to show next? The interactions of the coils. Which one's interacting with what? We've got 4 coils here which all have their own magnetic fields, induced currents, induced voltages, yada yada. I'm going to show a little bit of supporting evidence for this theory of mine because I'm not sure if it's correct. But this first is the input coil. What I believe is happening for the currents to correctly come into this coil, out here, and then into this coil, and then out here, This is what I believe is happening. The input coil is interacting and inducing a voltage, that's a current, into this A vector potential coil. It is also inducing a voltage, that's a current, in the output coil. Well, the back EMF, or the magnetic field coming back from this coil, the output coil, is interacting with this A vector potential coil, inducing a voltage, and there's a current in this coil. So then, if that's correct, then the coil's currents would be moving in the correct directions for it to be a shorted loop. And first off, what I want to show is if we move the two A vector potential coils together, I don't know if you watch the scope, but I don't know if, let me zoom in just to make sure you can see it. As I move them together, the amplitude will fall. And I actually should have these shorted if you want to see anything happen at all. 1 second. Okay, so we move them away, it grows. Move them together, it falls. And it's so slight, I don't think you can see it. Let's try zooming in a little bit. Move them together, it fell a little bit, move them apart, it grew a little bit. So, let me pause the camera, and what I want to do is move the coils a little bit to show this effect a little bit more. 1 sec. And actually, before I move those coils, note that I have 3.5 volts and 107 milliamps on the output. Keep that in mind. Thanks. Okay, so what I did was I moved the coils just down, and it bumped it up to 4.7 volts, 128 milliamps on the output. And if we move the coils away, if I move this one away from the output, see the amplitude fall considerably, actually. Same with the input. If I move it away from the input and then back. So now if we short and unshort, you actually should be able to see this on the bulb pretty easily. There's unshorted, shorted, unshorted, shorted, unshorted, shorted, which is quite interesting. So again, I believe input's interacting with the output and the first A vector potential coil, which then both interact with the second A vector potential coil to get those currents moving correctly in that short. What else? Let's go ahead and short this again. What I'm going to do now is pause the camera, and I want to flip these actually. So just flip them over, because let me explain why. If this coil is interacting primarily with the input coil first, the winding direction should show a better result if it's clockwise, counterclockwise with this instead of with this, I guess. Something like that. 1 sec, let me pause and I'll flip those around. So right now we're sitting at 4.7 volts, 128 milliamps. Okay, so I flipped the coils over. So now this one is actually clockwise, counterclockwise with the input coil. It went up a tiny bit, 4.72, but not much. So, I guess basically what a conclusion would be is these shorted coils interacting with the input and the output are creating just more magnetic field in the system, changing in time, which is resulting in a larger A vector potential in the system. Now, two things to note here. The input does go up but only about 10 milliamps. There's unshorted, it's at 78 milliamps. Shorted, 88 milliamps. And there's a phase difference. Unshorted, phase difference between the input and the output is about 50 degrees. And shorted, it drops to about 25 degrees, which is also interesting. Anyways, lots to think about in this one. Lots going on with the 4 different coils interacting with each other. And yeah, hope you enjoyed the video. Feel free to ask questions. Thanks.